Hello everybody, welcome back to the Brothers Grimdark, once again in the moody version of the studio because it's bug day. I'm going to be talking about some of my favorite Tyranid units. Today it's going to be the Warriors. Staple for the Tyranids these days, I think everyone knows they're a fantastic unit. I run them a little bit differently than I think is probably the norm, more for thematic reasons than anything else, but we'll get right into that. If you've seen my Tyranid army overview video, you'll already know this, but if you haven't, go check that out, it's really cool. I have a very specific kind of vision for what I'm trying to do with my Tyranids. It's very much a sort of alien xenomorph kind of vibe. I want them to feel very alien. So lots of lurking around in the shadows, being really scary when they attack things, and then kind of sneaking off again. But whenever I really wanted them to feel very intimidating when they show up. Which is why I've kind of leaned on the Warriors as my main troop choice. Gaunts are great. Gargoyles right now, because they can fly, also really great. Having obsec units that can fly. Termagants with all the things you can do with the Tervagon are really cool. But none of them, I don't like the Gaunts so much just because they're kind of weenie. They don't really feel as scary. It's more of a horde kind of feel. And the Gargoyles and the Termagants, it's the gun thing. I know they're bioweapons, but it just feels a little bit weird to me for having that sort of alien vibe to have things that feel like they're still holding guns. So I tend not to go kind of that route. The Warriors are big, imposing models. Like even compared to Primaris Marines, they loom right over top of them. So I think they look really intimidating still, even for older models. I think the design of overall the Tyranid range is fantastic. So even when you've got these kind of older sculpts, I still think they hold up really well aesthetically. So yeah, that's kind of why the Warriors are this main staple of my army. Right now I've got 3 units of 5 of them. And they're all kitted out the same way, generally. So they all have Rending Claws and Sliding Talons. That's again because I don't particularly want to run them with shooting bioweapons just for the look of it more than anything else. Definitely if you're running like competitive nids, I highly recommend going with like flesh borers, things like that. You really don't want to miss out on that shooting phase. But for me, from a thematic perspective, it just didn't really fit. At some point, I probably want to try a unit with bone swords as well. I think that they would fit quite nicely. I'd like to convert some of those up. But at the moment, I'm quite happy with the Rending Claws and Sliding Talons. And I'll get into the reason for that now. So I almost always run my Tyranids as Behemoth. Because I run a very combat-heavy army, I think that fits really well. Again, that very hard-hitting and then kind of disappearing off again to hit something else approach, which means I'm already getting +1 strength on the charge. That's pretty cool. So the Warriors are strength 5 by base. I'm getting +1 strength on the charge. Rending Claws give me another +1 strength, so I'm already up to strength 7 there. And here's the kicker is I almost always put adrenal glands on them. Now doing that means that my little 5-man units all end up being 165 points, which is a little on the pricey side. Like you can definitely get much more points efficiency by running a larger block of them, or obviously giving them a shooting bioweapon as well. But 165 points, what they do is still not terrible. They get that +1 movement, which is really handy too. But most importantly, they're now strength 8 on the charge, or if they get charged, with AP -4. So they shred through Marines really, really nicely. They're really good for going through that kind of elitish anti-infantry. They're only damage 1, but they're getting 3 attacks each. And also with adrenal glands, you've got access to a really nice stratagem where you can give them +1 attack. So with the sheer number of attacks you're getting, I mentioned this as well when I talked about my Neurothrope, I can also give them +1 to hit. So they're very reliably hitting with those attacks. They're strength 8, so they're going to be wounding a lot of things on 2s or 3s. If I really have to, I can also use a Behemoth stratagem, or no, it's the Behemoth Psychic Power, sorry, Unstoppable Onslaught to give them +1 to wound. So they're going to be very reliable hitting, very reliable wounding. They should really be putting a ton of damage out in combat. And I said AP -4 is nothing to sniff at, even with all of the minuses that are kind of going around right now with Marines and things. So I think they're a really potent damage output. They're obsec. They're relatively tough. Toughness 5 with a 4-up save, not too shabby. They've also got a stratagem where you can reduce damage that's going on them, so they tend to hang around a little bit. Obviously, if the enemy like focuses a ton of firepower into them, they're gonna die. Like they're warriors still. They're not like, you know, they're not gonna hold up to everything, but they've got a reasonable number of wounds. They're pretty tough, and you can buff them up in certain ways. Catalyst is also really nice psychic power if you want them to hang around, giving them that 5-up shrug. And then I also tend to run Zoanthrope, so you're getting an invul save for the first turn or so whenever that Synaptic Imperative goes off. So lots of good stuff there. So I think they're a great unit. I tend to run 3 units of 5 of them right now, which is probably the least points efficient way to run them. Like having a big blob of them would help, having them with bioweapons would help. But I kind of don't care. I think they're cool. I think 3 units of 5 is really handy for getting around the table, where they've got a 7-inch move with those adrenal glands. So they're very versatile. They're obsec. They're relatively tough to deal with. They're going to munch through most other troops that they come across if they can get in touch with them. So it's just making sure you get the right target in front of them. If they come up against something really, really tough, they might struggle with it. But even then, strength 8, AP -4 with 15 attacks base, it's gonna do something to most things. So I think they're really cool. They're the bedrock of my army. Almost always have 3 units of them. May end up adding some more at some point with bone swords, although I think with Behemoth that might be overkill. The extra damage is quite nice though. So I think that's it. I said I wouldn't mind experimenting with them, trying a couple of different options. Would love to know how you run yours. I know that one thing that's great about them is that I've got all mine the same way, but there are a lot of different varieties you can run with them. You can put venom cannons on them to get some anti-tank in there. You got the flesh borers, you got devourers. They've got rending claws, scything talons, bone swords. There's a lot of flexibility. They're a really cool unit like that. And I think they're priced with the nerf. Like they came out in the Codex, I think, at 25 points, and now they're 30. That's probably right if you've got them both with a combat weapon and a shooting weapon. I feel a little bit that they're maybe slightly pricey with the way I'm running them, but that's my choice. That's nothing to do with how the Codex is written. That's just me. Yeah, that's the Warriors. You're going to see a lot of them if you see my NIDS games. I'm going to try experiment a little bit, maybe bring some gargoyles and gaunts and things for a little bit of variety, but you're almost always going to see Warriors out there. Oh, the last thing, as I mentioned as well, is of course they're synapse. So they don't run away, which is great. And I mentioned I've got Zoanthropes and Neurothropes out there, so being able to bounce psychic powers and synaptic imperatives around the place is great. It basically means I've got a blanket coverage for synapse type abilities across my whole army by having those as my troops. So another really good reason to run Warriors if you're kind of building around those synaptic links and imperatives. So that's the Warriors. They're a fantastic unit. Every Tyranid should have a few of them, and you can mix and match them depending on the kind of the theme of your army. I'm going super combat-y, but that's just me. Do what works for you. Let me know what you're doing, how they work for you. And yeah, that's it for today. I will catch you next time in another episode of The Brothers Grimdark.